Okay, so let me give you a couple of words and names here and just get some visceral reaction from you. Dan Snyder, Washington football team, Commodores, pick a name. I don't know what it'll be next year. They've had issues with sexual harassment, alleged sexual harassment. Well, now, in a very interesting legal wrinkle, the AG for the district there has filed a lawsuit against the team saying that they misled the residents of the District of Columbia because they didn't tell them there was this toxic and broken culture within the organization. I guess therefore meaning that they would spend money on the team when they wouldn't have if they knew exactly what that culture was like. That's my best guess. Luckily, I'm not bright. I went to state school. What do I know? But I have some very bright folks here, including Richard Deshotstein, and we have Ben Chu. Ben Chu, who I understand, because he told me, has an interesting connection to the AG in this case, and I want to hear your take on this. It sounds like a creative lawsuit. I'm not sure if it's more than that.
Well, Michael, I had the honor of attending University of Virginia School of Law with both Carl Racine, who is our outgoing Attorney General in Washington, and also Beth Wilkinson, who by coincidence had been engaged to do the white paper on the Washington then Redskins, now Commanders, not Commodores.
Although, sorry, I can't get past it. Yeah.
You make a good point because the name could continue to change. I preferred Red Wolves, but that fell out of contention. Carl is an amazing lawyer, first and foremost, and I agree with you, Michael, that this might be a bit of a stretch. It seems very creative. But having known Carl for many years, Carl's also a great athlete. He was an all-Ivy point guard at Penn undergraduate. He's not to be underestimated. So if he's filed something, I wouldn't count him out.
Okay. Well, what do you think, Richard? What's the point here? If it's really not Hornbook law, this lawsuit. Well, what's the point? What's the goal?
Well, first of all, the lawsuit, the claim actually isn't simply non-disclosure, right? You could have a claim that they didn't disclose the toxic environment of the Washington football team. The claim is actually that they conducted a sham investigation and fed it to the public saying we did an independent investigation to ferret out all the misconduct. And in fact, the investigation was controlled by Snyder and the other people running the football team. That is the claim, and therefore they say it's a violation of the Consumer Protection Procedures Act as fraud on the consumers of the Washington football team.
So to prove that, though, now let's say that's the foundational allegation. Now they've got to prove the damages, that people acted as a result of those activities. How are you going to do that?
Right. Well, that's an interesting point. They would have to maybe show spending. Maybe they'd have some charts of what the spending was on the football team before the investigation and after the investigation. But you get to the heart of it. I don't think the point of the lawsuit is to win a big damages award or even to go to trial. This seems to be to make a public statement, put some pressure on the team. Ben could tell us better than I know, but I'm under the impression there are a lot of people in the Washington area that would like to see Dan Snyder unload this team and get the heck out of football.
Yeah, I think you're right. What do you think about that, Ben? Do you think that's the ultimate goal here?
Michael, I think you and Richard are spot on. I think there's incredible pressure in Washington and all of us long-suffering fans to get a change in ownership. There is a decaying football facility out in Maryland where the Commanders now play. None of the jurisdictions, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., appear to be willing to deal with Mr. Snyder in terms of putting up a new stadium or providing any state money. So this could be yet another means to pressure Mr. Snyder into selling the team, which could be win-win because the value of the team, irrespective of the team's record, although we've had a few wins of late, is quite high. So he stands to make an enormous profit if he does sell the team.
So what do you think the deal is with Dan Snyder? Why is he so disliked? Is it one thing? Is it a bunch of things? What's the deal there?
I think it's a bunch of things. I think he took over the team from a very successful owner, Jack Kent Cooke. Some of you will remember the great coach Joe Gibbs, who's now moved on to auto racing. But he brought 3 world championships to Washington. And that era is remembered very fondly. And in the Snyder era, for whatever reason, the team just has not been successful. We've only been to the playoffs a few times. That, and also reports, there have been reports about the allegedly toxic environment at Redskins Park. There have been now Commanders Park, I suppose. And there have been a lot of negative reports out of that. True or not, there's been an enormous amount of turnover among coaches, general managers, that kind of thing, and that has led to a lot of dissatisfaction here in the Washington area.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they were winning, had been winning, looked like they might continue winning, if this whole thing would even have come to light here. Who knows? There is one point, Richard, that I think everybody who's ever watched football, who's of a certain age, knows about the Redskins, at the time the Redskins. Joe Theismann, the video of his leg kind of going a wrong direction. It's probably the most graphic injury I've ever seen in football. You remember that?
I do remember that. I do remember that. That snapped his leg, and it was a horrible injury.
Yeah.
Turns out football is sort of a violent sport.
I've heard that.
But it would be interesting if they actually tried the case, because essentially it's a case against the Washington Redskins. I know it's nominally against Dan Snyder, but it's also against the team. So now you got to bring in a pool of jurors from the area, many of whom are Washington fans. And now you've got to put on a case where you're basically attacking the football team in front of the football team's fans. So that would be a difficult jury pool to have to fight. Maybe you try to get Ravens fans in the mix. I don't know how you do it.
It seems, maybe it's a long way to go to get better seats. I'm not sure what the ultimate goal might be here. And, I was a seat holder with the San Francisco Giants for many years, then moved east and, couldn't do much about it. They had a stranglehold on me. They didn't want to let me out of the deal there, but I got out of it. Anyway, so, hey, Ben, I appreciate you being here. A pleasure to catch up with you. I'm glad to see things, they're going okay. I'm glad to hear that. You guys did such great work. It was such an honor to watch you do your work, and I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Thank you, Michael. I would love to come back and join you. By the way, quick footnote, the Redskins actually won the game in which Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg. Jay Schrader came off the bench and won the game and beat the Giants, so that is a footnote. I agree.
Yes. Yeah, most people don't remember that part, but a true fan would.